Hey everyone, my name is Lily and I'm the book blogger behind Utopia State of Mind, and today I'm going to be doing one of those ranking things. So I'll leave the link to the ranking below, and so if you do this, please let me know what your rankings are. But the title of the ranking on Tier Maker is Book Twitter Popular Books and Series Tier List Maker. I'm a little bit nervous about doing this. There are some pretty hyped series on here, some of which I haven't read, some of which I've only kind of half completed or read one book. So just know that unless I've said that I've read the whole series, like I haven't, but I'll give you more information below, and let's just go to it. So I've zoomed everything down so that it's a little bit easier and you don't have to watch me scroll all the time. But let's start off with some very easy ones, okay? So the first one has to be the Poppy War. If you've been following my blog, or if you've been following like me on the internet at all, anywhere, then you will know that I adore the Poppy War. Poppy War is for sure one of my favorites, so that immediately goes, into 5 stars. That's a little bit better. Everything is now so small in the thing, I'm really sorry. But it goes into 5 stars. I love this so much. I read arcs of all of them, and it's just so amazing, and the series is so complex, and it is so rich, and the characters are so fabulous, especially as you see them develop and evolve like throughout the entire series. So that I saw that and immediately knew that was going to be a 5-star book pick for me. So let's go on with some other 5 stars for sure. The next one has to be The Gilded Wolves. So I adore The Gilded Wolves and The Silvered Serpents. It's like a group heist novel, but it's so much more than that because the group dynamics are so fabulous. Found family is a huge theme. It's also kind of like an archaeological treasure hunting vibe thing to it, which you gotta love. It kind of looks at a meta level about like object acquisition and the life of an object and who the object belongs to, etc. So that has to be definitely one of my 5-star favorites. And then the rest are a little bit trickier to do, so let's just get into it. We'll just go from like left to right, I guess. So the first is A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm not gonna read that. I have not read any of them. The only Sarah J. Maas book I've read is Crescent City, which is also on this list. But maybe I would feel better about Sarah J. Maas if I had read like the YA series first, but in general, Sarah J. Maas just gets so much hype, and so A, she like doesn't need the hype from me, and B, I just wasn't like super impressed with Crescent City. So I think the actual Goodreads star review rating I gave it was 3 stars, and for the purposes of this, I'm gonna put in 2 stars for now. My main gripe with Crescent City was that because Sarah J. Maas had so much hype for all of her earlier series, Crescent City had a lot of hype, and so I thought that there was going to be something really unique and really, just really unique, and I felt like Crescent City was, to me, a very kind of urban fantasy meets detective kind of mystery thing, which it wasn't bad, but like, based on the hype that I had been hearing, I kind of was expecting a really intense kind of high fantasy world, which I think is what she's perhaps done in the past, and this is not the case in Crescent City. So that was the first thing, and I think the second thing, or the other things, were I felt that Crescent City was way too long. There are a lot of parts of Crescent City where I was kind of lost because I wasn't sure why we were talking about it, and so I felt like it was too long. I also felt like world building wise, I didn't understand some of the larger world building things. So about like the cities in relation to like the other world / other cities. I have no idea how that worked. And yeah, in general, I just wasn't so impressed. I think I originally gave it 3 stars because I was like, yeah, it's like, I like it. But now that I'm thinking about it, especially thinking about Goodreads star ratings in general, technically, and it was okay, is a 2, and 3 is I liked it. So I'm gonna put on 2 for now, and I'm gonna put A Court of Thorns and Roses on not gonna read. So yeah. The next one is A Curse, So Dark and Lonely. Is it lonely? Yeah, lonely. So I didn't really like this. I'm not a huge fan of Beauty and the Beast. I did finish it though, so I'm not gonna put on DNF. It's like, I also, okay, I hope I don't get like immediately canceled for this for this video. I am not a huge fan of Beauty and the Beast retellings, or Beauty and the Beast like stories, period. So I kind of was looking at it a little bit apprehensively because, as I said, it's not my favorite. It's not like a fantasy or fairy tale. It's not my favorite story, I guess. And so A Curse So Dark and Lonely, I just remember reading it and being like, this to me kept all the elements that I don't really enjoy in Beauty and the Beast, and like didn't change them, but kind of kept them very similar. So in a sense, I feel like in some ways it was a pretty decent like retelling, I guess. But for me, what I love about retellings is there's so much potential to do something different, or like to subvert or invert tropes or invert like things in the stories. And so I just felt like a little bit that it was a wasted potential. And I know that there's a trilogy, right? So there's like 2 other books. So maybe in the 2 other books, then the foundations for that story are kind of changed and thought about. And I do think there's some perspectives I liked others better than others, but unfortunately they weren't like the main perspectives. I think they're the main perspective in the sequel, the second one. But yeah, I just didn't like love the first one enough to finish the trilogy. And it just like was not for me, essentially. So next is A Darker Shade of Magic. I've only read the first one. I haven't read the second and third. That's kind of one of my 2021 goals, just because when I read the first one, I definitely think I gave it like a solid 4 stars. So I'm going to tentatively put it in 4 stars, even though, as I said, I haven't read 2 and 3. Just because I had read a lot of hype, obviously. Like, the hype train is so hyped for A Darker Shade of Magic. And I felt like it actually delivered. Like, I was like, oh, the characters are still really interesting to me, even though I'd heard, 5 million, I've seen 5 million character fan stuff for like Cal and Lila, or Leela, and I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But, and also the world building idea of like traveling between those kind of parallel worlds and like the magic and stuff. So I definitely think it kind of lived up to the hype. And as I said, I'll read books 2 and 3 this year, hopefully. The next is An Ember in the Ashes. I've read now 3 of the 4. I'm definitely going to put it in 4 stars. So I think every Ember in the Ashes, I think my highest rating was maybe 4 stars. What was that noise? I think my highest rating was 4 stars. I'm not going to check now, because then I would expose my chaotic Goodreads to you. But I'm pretty sure the highest ones I gave were 4 stars. I think it was really fabulous. I gotta say, I didn't really enjoy the first one as much as I thought I would. In a couple of these ranking things, you're gonna see that I think that if I'd read them earlier, like when they released, or if I read them as a teen, which is the intended audience, then I would have liked it more. But for me, I'm kind of, when I read An Ember in the Ashes, I'm kind of over the like Roman-esque setting. I haven't read a lot of that, like that time period settings where I really, really love it. And so I had read The Ember and Ashes basically right after, I think, A Dark Shores, which has like a very similar vibe to it, in some respects. And yeah, I guess like for me, the Roman setting just wasn't so enjoyable in An Ember in the Ashes. And I do think that it's kind of gone away from that, and I've enjoyed the world building more and more basically with every book. But yeah, that was harder for me in Ember in the Ashes. But as I said, I think my enjoyment of the series has gotten more every book. So I'm excited for A Sky Beyond the Storm. That's the last one I have to read. My library hold said it would take me 6 months to get it. So we'll just see how it goes when I get it. The Foxhole Court, I'm going to add definitely into TBR. I haven't heard anyone but Paper Fury talk about the Foxhole Court. I know nothing about it except that Paper Fury, I'm pretty sure, loves this series. So it's on my TBR. That's all I'll have to say. Aristotle and... I've made everything so small, I can't read the entire title. But anyway, Aristotle and Dante... Secrets to the Universe. I have read this. I was like bringing my computer up closer to my face. I have read this. I remember liking it, but I remember being kind of like, because it was also kind of hyped to me before I started it, but I remember reading it and being like, okay, this is good, but I don't remember being like, oh my god, this is the best thing. So I think I'm gonna put that at 3 stars. Except, oof, so the thing is, like, for the ranking things, where do you put books that you may have... So I'm pretty sure, and I don't, like, don't quote me. I'm pretty sure that the author, like, I think, want to say is somewhat problematic. Like, I thought that I had heard, but this is ages ago, so I obviously don't remember everything. And also, like, the book wasn't one of my favorite ones, so I didn't, like, commit it to memory. But I'm pretty sure that I saw, like, that a reviewer had reviewed it on Goodreads, and I think the author, like, came after them for it. So the thing is, I don't want to put it on DNF because I read it, but this happened after I read it. So I think I'm gonna put it on DNF for now, but realize that, like, that's not actually, I actually did finish that. So the next is Song of Race and Ruin. I'm definitely gonna put it in 4 stars. The rest of the series hasn't really come out yet. I think it's book 2 is coming out this year. I just remember really, really loving it. I have it, like, basically right here on my shelf. I was reading a lot of, like, dual perspective rivals to, like, romance, etc. things at the time, because I was reading that, and I can't remember, like, the other ones I was reading at the time. But because of that, everything kind of got smushed together in my mind, and, like, you know, if you read 357 books, or 361 books, or 390 books in a year, like, it's gonna happen that they smush together. But I remember really liking that A Song of Race and Ruin was my favorite of the, like, group I'd read all together at that point. So definitely 4 stars. I also, like, pre-ordered it and stuff, and I'm going to try to track down the second one as well. So that's why it's gonna go in 4 stars. I have not read Bloodlines. I think this is also by Rochelle Mead. I don't think I've read any of her books. The thing is, vampires are something that I love in theory, and I'm finding it really hard to find really great vampire books in practice. So if you know any, please let me know below. I'm gonna tentatively put on not going to read, just because it's not actively on my TBR, but I'm not saying I'll never read it, basically. Like, I'm probably, I would say 90% never gonna read that Sarah J. Maas series. But, I mean, like, I think that other people I follow really enjoy the Bloodlines or the Vampire Academy. I'm gonna put Vampire Academy, which I saw also down here, there as well. Just because, as I said, it's not on my active TBR at the moment, and it's sad. Maybe those 2 are, like, really fantastic vampire novels. So please let me know down below if you definitely think that I should actually put that to my TBR list. But yeah, I've been having a really hard time finding vampire novels I really enjoy. And in theory, it's something that I really like. Like, I really love the idea of vampires, but yeah. Wait, speaking of vampires, Twilight was on here. Oof, yeah, Twilight's on here. Twilight was nostalgic for me because I remember reading them as they came out. And basically, I remember reading, I think, Full Moon. Yeah, I think I was reading Full Moon. I remember reading it because I brought it, like, on a trip. So I remember reading it on the airplane and just crying, like, just losing it on the airplane. So it's hard because, like, nostalgically, I look back and I remember all of that emotional angst and that emotional kind of, like, I felt so deeply that I was as angsty as Bella. But actually thinking about it, especially, like, the last book, I was even, like, nostalgic me was unhappy with, like, how the last book kind of was. So I feel like I'm gonna give it 2... Also, as an adult, too, I look at it and I'm kind of like, oof, Lily, like, why? Why? I feel like the whole series, because I've read the whole series, so I think that the whole series, nostalgic me, would have given the whole series, like, maybe a 3-ish star rating. So I think adult me is going to give it 2. But just know that nostalgic me was, like, 3. And I think for me, and this was one where I read, like, as a teen, right? So when I was the intended audience. Like, it just hit angsty me like that. And I think also, I mean, you can go into so many details and so many videos about Twilight, but like, when I think about why I was so emotionally invested, I think it was because there's a part of everyone, I think, that, or not everyone, well, maybe not everyone, but at least there was part of me growing up when I was reading this where I was thinking, like, I don't think that, like, anyone will ever see me. And see me, like, recognize me, you know, not see me, like, you know, in the halls or whatever, but see me and love me, I guess. And that's, at the time that I was reading it, that was definitely how I was feeling. Because I was reading this, like, I want to say, like, around 15, you know, like, that young, essentially. So definitely when I was a teen. And also, I don't feel like at that point I was really thinking enough about what I was reading, like, critically. So I definitely think that some of the themes about, like, relationships and that kind of behavior maybe imprinted on me in a way that probably wasn't that great. And, like, you know, as an adult person, I can kind of, like, look back at more. But yeah, I guess for me at that point, it was definitely something that kind of really resonated with me about not feeling like feeling like that great kind of heartbreak thing was it, right? Like, that was it. Or, you know, feeling like I would, being completely unassuming and then, like, having someone like you, I guess, was such a strange topic for me. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna put it now. But, you know, next is Caraval, or have I finished all the vampire books? The thing is, some of them I haven't, like, read, so I don't know. But yeah, let's just go on. The next is Caraval, or Caraval, don't know how you say it. I I read Caraval, I think maybe a year or 2 years ago. Very hyped. Didn't love it. Like, I heard that for some people, because I posted, I think, a review, and some people told me that they didn't really like Caraval as much, but they liked Legendary more. So I definitely am open to, like, reading the rest of the series. So, like, the rest of the series goes on my TBR, and it is in my 2020, like, series I want to read, or at least read, like, the sequel to kind of figure that out. So it's hard because, you know, Legendary goes on my TBR. But if I'm just reviewing Caraval, which is kind of what I'm doing for the ones that I haven't finished the series for, I would have to say somewhere between a 2 and a 3. I think, okay, I'm going to put it on 3 at the moment. But in reality, I went to Caraval because I really wanted to see those sister relationships. And I was kind of disappointed with it, honestly. And I felt like the magic was interesting. But I also feel like if you want that kind of similar vibe of magic, what I found and loved more was definitely Where Dreams Descend and that kind of vibe. So I'm going to put it in 3 and kind of see how I feel a little bit later. City of Brass. So I've read The City of Brass and The Kingdom of Copper, and I remember enjoying The City of Brass, but The Kingdom of Copper was really hard for me to get through. I think I gave it like a 3. So I think technically if you average, like, my feelings about City of Brass and Kingdom of Copper together, I think you'll get maybe like a 3 or 3.5. Because I did like City of Brass. I think I gave it like 4. But it had been a while since I read City of Brass, and maybe that's on me for, like, not actively rereading a first book in the series before reading a sequel, but also, like, I ain't got time for that. But also, like, there are so many series that I'm trying to keep up with, and you know, the 2021 series, you can see how many series I'm trying to keep up with, and that wasn't even, like, all the series, right? So in general, I kind of read them, and I'll maybe, like, read my review of the past one, or I'll read my notes where I've been putting the information about things that have been happening, just so I know for future me to look at that. But I just remember Kingdom of Copper feeling so much slower, and I felt like maybe towards the end it kind of picked up in speed, but since it's the second in the trilogy, I kind of felt like you don't need to pick up speed again, kind of like in the first book for a lot of trilogies. So yeah, just for me, it was a little bit slower than I was expecting. And I remember when Empire of Gold came out, I was like, oh, should I try to get an arc of it? And yeah, it just, like, wasn't on the top of my TBR. I'm not saying I'll never finish it. I think eventually I will. But yeah, the second one was kind of just hard for me to get through, and it took me I think I got an arc of it before it released, and it took me almost like 7 months. Because I just was picking it up and putting it back down again, and I just generally don't enjoy that feeling of doing that. Like, I enjoy feeling completely immersed and captivated, so, yeah. Okay, Divergent. I read Divergent when I was a teen, or like, you know, upper teen, so, it's been a really long time since I read it. I remember liking it, but definitely liking each book less the more I read it. So, yeah, I'm gonna give it maybe 2 stars at the moment, because honestly, I also haven't watched the movies, so I haven't thought about this book in a really long time. I honestly can't remember, like, anything about it. So, yeah, I kind of want to make a tier maker for all my nostalgic, like, series that I read as teens. See what people think. Okay. The next ones I haven't read. Okay, so I'm going to put... So it's hard because From Blood and Ash, I've seen everywhere online now because, you know, like, book boxes have been doing special editions for it. So I gotta say, I'm tentatively interested in reading it, but also realizing that I follow a lot of diverse book creators and a lot of book creators and bookish, you know, people that really love diverse books, you know, whether it's like people of color books or, you know, Black, Indigenous people of color books or queer books. And honestly, I hadn't heard anything about From Blood and Ash from them, who I really trust those recommendations. I've only really heard about From Blood and Ash because of the book boxes. So I don't know. I'm going to put Dance of Thieves on not going to read because apparently that is the sequel, like a companion sequel series to a different one, which I definitely haven't read. So I'm definitely going to put it on that because I haven't read it. But I don't know what to do also with Fallen. I don't really know what to do about From Blood and Ash. I'm tentatively kind of intrigued by it, so maybe I'll put it on TBR. Yeah, so let's go on. So Frostblood. I've heard like a little bit about Frostblood, but honestly not that much about it, so I'm doing it, but I'm not going to read. But it kind of reminded me vibe-wise of what I've been hearing a little bit about Winter Song and Shadow Song, which I am going to read. Winter Song is the Backlist Bookworms book pick for February. So by the time you see this video, because I'm pre-filming a lot of videos, by the time you see this video, I will have read it. But anyway, I think Frostblood is also duology, so that maybe that's why it gives me like that kind of vibe, and also Frost is like winter, and Winter Song, Frostblood, like they just seem very similar vibes. But yeah, I'm gonna read Winter Song and then see how that goes. And I mean, maybe if everyone in the comments is like, you have to read Frostblood, then I'll think about it. Furyborn. Difficult. I'm gonna put this in, at the moment, 3 stars. So it's, for me, probably somewhere between 3 and 4. I remember really loving Furyborn. And then I remember Kingsbane. I was like Nightbringer, Kingbringer, Kingsbane. I remember reading Kingsbane and being like, yeah, this is good. But I think for me, it was like Furyborn is 4, and then Kingsbane is 3, and then Lightbringer was also 4. So technically, it's in like 3.5 stars. But I also feel like, yeah, for me, the middle one kind of just lost me a little bit more. And I felt like in Lightbringer, a lot of things like twists and stuff were brought up, which I totally forgot about. And there are a lot of perspectives in Lightbringer that I was having a really hard time with. Just because there were just so many. And I do really like multiple perspectives, but that was getting a little too much. And yeah, so I also remember being so hyped for Lightbringer as well. And then, yeah, so I think I'm going to leave it at 3. But in general, if you do like kind of like Angel, dual timeline, interesting kind of world building, then you should check out Furyborn and see if you like it. I'm putting Shadow and Bone on my TBR. Not gonna lie, I'm only reading it right now because of the Netflix series. So I'm supposed to read Shadow and Bone in January, and basically every book until the series is in April. I haven't started Shadow and Bone yet. I'm filming this in January, by the way. So, you know, we'll see. By the time this video is published, I should have read it. Fingers crossed. So it's on my TBR. Heartless. Technically, Heartless is also my TBR because I was able to buy it like in a book outlet order 5 million years ago. And also I was happy to see that there's like foiling on the book underneath the dust cover. So tentatively I'm going to put in TBR, but like it's not high on my TBR. So just know that. House of Salt and Sorrows. I've read House of Salt and Sorrows. I'm gonna give it, it's another like 3.5 thing. I'm gonna put it at 3 so far. I will say, this was kind of like a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling thing. I loved what Aaron Craig did with this, right? Kind of subverting it and making it super, super creepy and all of that stuff. Like, I loved that element particularly. I guess for me, some of the issues were like pacing and maybe character development. But I really enjoyed like that aspect and that theme a lot. So I'm putting it definitely at 3 stars. And as I said, I think my actual rating was somewhere closer to 4, maybe like 3.5, 3.75, I guess. But I definitely still like think of it very fondly and remember it. And would recommend it also for people who are definitely looking for eerie retellings. I don't think I read enough eerie books, and House of Salt and Sorrows was definitely eerie. Okay. Harry Potter. Okay. I have nostalgic memories about some of the Harry Potter books. So when I was a kid, I was listening to Harry Potter on audiobook, so on tape players, like cassette tapes, put it in a battery-operated tape player. And I remember really liking the first one, and the second one, and the third is the last one I really enjoyed. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, I definitely think that as every book progressed, I liked them less and less. And then I didn't actually even read the last book till I was in college. And my roommate basically forced me to because she was a Harry Potter stan, or like a Harry Potter fan. And yeah, I just liked it less and less. And this was even before all of the problematic stuff with J.K. Rowling. And so there's obviously a huge discussion about separating artist and creator, and do you separate them? Like, what are the, the things about it? I'm gonna put it in 1 star. Just because, yeah, as I was saying, like, if I rated the books when I was in college, and then when I finished it, basically, I think I would probably have given the series as a whole maybe 2 stars. Just because, as I said, it was like 7 books, right? So if you only really like 3 out of 7 that want much, then that's not very good as a series overall. So yeah. Also, I mean, when I was growing up too, I definitely was like, oh, Cho is like, a character I can identify with. And also being super frustrated with how Cho's character was portrayed as well. And I picked that up when I was reading it, like as a kid. So yeah, that's where it's gonna go. I haven't read Hush Hush. I'm gonna put it on not gonna read just because I haven't heard about it in a really long time. But yeah. I'm not gonna read is gonna go on a lot of these. So if you see any where you're like, you definitely should read it, please let me know. Illuminae. I've read the first of Illuminae. I haven't read Obsidio and Gemina. I liked it. I think I gave it like 3 or 4 stars when I read it. So I'm gonna maybe put it in 4 just because I read, at this point, I'm so starved for YA sci-fi that, yeah. Like, I just need a lot more YA sci-fi in my life. And I remember being really, the hype for Illuminae I thought was intense, but I remember also being very blown away by how it delivered on some of those aspects and didn't deliver on other of those aspects. I have heard that the second is not as good as the third. So tentatively, I'm putting the Illuminae at least on the 4. And then, the rest of my rating on the series, TBD. I'm going to put King of Scars on TBR as well, because theoretically, if I read Shadow and Bone, then I will read King of Scars, and if I like it, because I have King of Scars, but I remember people saying, like, you definitely needed to read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and I hadn't. So this ended up being too long, and I've decided to break it into 2 roughly 30-minute parts. So definitely stay tuned for part 2 of the rest of the ranking video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!